Well, there's been some reports of the DS2 not updating right, or just having having some issues with updating the DS2 to version 1.00 software. I've updated many times to a lot of different softwares. I've never had a problem with it. So I have been helped diagnosing some issues with people updating their machines. I'll just Here's some tips here for you if you're having some problems. If you're updating the WS6, use the small patch cord that came with that remote, or with that puck. Don't use your DS2 remote cable that has 3 wires on it. Use the data cable that came with that puck. Or if you're updating your WSA2XLs, use that patch cord. Don't use the DS2 remote cord that has 3 cords on it. Always use a single data cord to update those pucks or the headphones. And if you are experiencing some issues, like if your machine won't turn off or your coil won't connect, check your coil first. Check your coil, make sure it's fully charged, and make sure that your coil is the proper coil selected for the remote or for the puck, and make sure that the numbers match up, and make sure your coil is in standby mode before you start pairing that or turn that detector on or pairing it. And make sure your coil is working properly. Or you could use somebody else's remote or your headphones to pair with that coil if you're having problems with that coil. And if it's not working, then try to update one more time or a couple more times to the new software. You may have not had a good download from or upload to your machine or your puck. So just try it a couple times, and if that's not working, go back to a previous version and see if it's pairing to your coil. And remember, you got to use the right cord for your device that you're trying to upload to. So if that doesn't work, you're having problems with the coil, it's probably a faulty coil. It's really tough to diagnose these things because we're not there. I'm not there helping you. I've had problems in the past, but I've just gotten through them. With the DS2 version 1, some people are also having there's been some reports that they're digging up nails. It's hot on nails. It is hot on nails. It is hot on batteries, a lot hotter on batteries with this version. And I have a lot of hours on this version. I always run my silencer at 0. Always have, pretty much with all my detectors. I run my bias as low as I can, pretty much towards iron. Even with the Equinox, 0 iron bias. On the Legend, 0, right? On the DS2, 0. I always run it at 0. And there's other things I can do to not false on nails and reject those nails. Swing faster, or just raise that silencer or that bias up, and not dig up nails. But it is the parameters for that setting, the silencer, has been changed, and it is quite a bit hotter on batteries. I've noticed that like the D batteries or the AA batteries, those batteries sound really good, and washers, they sound better. Bottle caps, it's always been kind of that shady area with bottle caps. I run my bottle cap setting at 0, right? And the single frequency, the mono program, does not have a bottle cap reject on it, so you're going to be digging up the bottle caps just no matter what you do. But you can turn your bottle cap reject on and it will reject the bottle caps, but you will be missing targets that are co-located next to bottle caps, or those odd shaped piece of iron. Sometimes masked targets will get rejected by a higher bottle cap reject setting. But with the nail issue, just swing faster, right? Just give it a quick swing. Have a varying speed as you swing over that target over that nail, and you're getting those iron tones. And I can tell you this right now, I've seen quite a few people have their iron volume low or off. I suggest not doing that, because if you have your iron volume low or off, you're going to be digging up more iron. Even me, if I have my iron volume at 0, I'm going to be digging up nails, and I'm going to be digging up junk iron all the time. So if you have your reject volume or your iron volume down really low, or your iron range a low volume or off, you're going to be digging up a lot of iron. And that swing speed has a lot to do with it. If you're wiggling your coil over really slow and just wiggling it out, you're going to dig nails. You're going to dig nails with the Deus 2. It's always been like that. Even the Deus 1, if you swing slow, you're going to dig the iron out. The nails are going to sound really good. Those washers, those nails, those bottle caps, those odd shaped piece of iron. Raise your reject volume up. Your iron volume's got to be up so you can hear that iron. This with any machine. If you have your iron volume off on all machines, you're going to dig more iron. This is just how it is. You don't know that it's falsing if you cannot hear that iron tone with that, because all detectors will false on iron. And especially if you have your detector biased towards iron like I do. I always have my iron bias at 0. I just learned to hunt with it. I want to run my detector raw. I want to run it hot. And that's how you can get more targets out of the ground. You know, a lot of people have been saying, you know, they tested in the garden one time, and they update and they test in the garden one time. Oh, it's way, way better. Well, you take it out in the field, you know, it's a lot different than your test garden, especially in preset programs, or even with your, if you have a custom program that you always use, and you try to use that custom program, you know, develop that or put your custom program in the new Deus 2 software, it's going to operate a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit hotter on iron. So that's how you get more targets out of the ground. If you can adjust that bias towards iron, you're going to be digging out a little bit more iron, but you will be finding more masked targets near iron. And I have a lot of hours on the Deus 2 with 0 silencer, and I don't dig out nails. I'll dig out very few pieces of iron, because I'm swinging faster. And I'm not only swinging faster if I do get a target in the ground, I'm swinging fast, and I start pinpointing that target, swing slower, faster, slower, and I do that just like that. You don't even see it when I'm doing that on video. I'm just doing quick, fast, slow, and then boom, I dig the target. I'm rotating as I'm doing that. And rotating on your targets, if you get a really good tone there, this is a tip here. If you just hit a target and you swing slow, and you just only swing on that target in one direction, you're going to dig up nails, right? You must rotate on all targets if they're an iffy tone. And if your iron volume is up, you can hear that iron just a little bit if you're swinging on that target perpendicular. So once you get parallel to that nail, you'll understand that tone. It's going to give you an iron tone. But swing speed and your iron bias, you know, that's one thing that you can change to not dig up nails. And you know, full tones is working really good now. When you can have your that full audio range open. In the previous versions, it was really hard to keep that range open up to minus 6.4. I can I can uh, I can tell you that the silencer the silencer has a lot to do with the falsing and the tones. You know, the PWM tones is going to false a little bit more because it hears all the minerals in the ground a lot more, and those minerals are louder in PWM tones. I prefer the square or square high tones. The square tones I've used quite a bit, but the square high tones, it amplifies, it gives those iron targets, it increases the amplitude of the iron in the ground. So you still get square tones, but you still get that range of iron, and it's not a mineral tone, but it's a strong, robust iron tone that the square tones does not have, but the PWM does have. It's really the PWM has always been pretty abrasive. The iron tones on the PWM has been very abrasive, and it still is abrasive. Right? That's the reason why I don't use PWM tones, because I can hunt for a couple hours and my brain is just melted. Right? It's just really hard to concentrate when you have really loud iron volume. So when you're in square tones, I can discriminate up really high and reject those foily targets, and still control the volume of that through my reject volume and the tone volumes, those blocks of volume in full tones. So you have windows that you can assign to certain TIDs, like maybe a zinc penny or a pull tab, and you want to drop that tone volume down so they're not so loud. They will have that certain tone, that pitch of tone, but the volume level you can drop down, like on your junk target that you don't really want to dig out. But I want to dig everything out anyway. So hear me out. If you drop the volume on certain targets like zinc pennies or pull tabs, like down to 7 or something, and all your other volumes are at 10, or your coins are at 10, those zinc pennies and those pull tabs will sound deep, even though they're on the surface. So it's really hard to decipher the depth on the target because the volume is lower. That's how I determine depth on my machine. I have my machine under my chin. I'm not looking at my screen, so I'm going by tones. So the tone of those zinc pennies, if I have it down lower volume, it's going to sound deeper than it is. It's actually a shallow target, but it sounds deep. So I just struggle if I try to lower the volume on the junk targets. So something on the surface will sound really deep, so I dig a big hole for nothing. And also on the offset too. The offset, if you raise the offset up really high when you're in full tones, you are getting less tones on there, so it compresses that full range, that full audio range into a small window, and you're getting fewer tones. So the higher you go up with the offset number, the fewer tones you're getting. If you go all the way up to 40 years, it's just a single tone. When you're in full tones, might as well just be in pitch, for all that matters. So I usually have my volume set for my minerals a little bit lower, like 9 or 8, and then my iron is up higher, and so that's the only thing I adjust, is just the minerals, so it's not so loud. But I still have to have those accepted. I still have to have those rich mineral tones when I'm in full tones. Sometimes I'll just discriminate up higher and use that tone break or that tone, those tone windows to lower the volume so the minerals and the iron will have different tonal volumes. Because while my deeper targets, I will still get those iron tones that are deep coins. If they're super deep. And with the offset, I have mine about 7 or 8, 9 or so, because I want as many tones as possible, and I still want to get those lower conductive targets. I want them to be separated from my iron tones. And so some people who I hunt with use the Legend, and Kurt has his tone pitch at 30, which is really high. So pretty much his coins, his pull tabs, his higher end, his cans law, all the coins, they all sound the same pitch. So Kurt is using 60 tone, but his pitch is up to 30. So he may have like 8 or 10 tone because his pitch range is so high. It decreases the amount of tones that detector generates when you have your pitch up high. Kurt has his at 30, Jim has his at like 19 or 20, and I have mine at about 15, so right in the middle range. So I have a full tone operation, 60 tones. If you have your full tones set at 5 offset, you have probably several hundred tones. I'm not really sure. I've counted the tones. You know, if you're in full tones minus 6.4 discrimination, 0 offset, you have about 80 non-ferrous tones there. About 80. Don't take my word for it, but about 80 tones. And then your iron range is about 120 tones or so, and then your mineral range about 65 tones. So that's how many tones there is when you're in real full tones set at 0 offset. The same way with the Deus 1. If you count all those tenths, that's a tone when you're in full tones. Each one of those tenths is a tone. So it's full tones isn't like 60 tone or 50 tone on the Equinox or the Legend. Way more tones. We're talking a lot more tones, and that's why it's taken so long to develop this full tones. Many months. You know, it's way more complex than 50 tones. Well, thank you for watching.